I stood outside Horizon Tech headquarters with my legs shaking beneath me. The security guard had just pointed across the parking lot, and his words echoed in my head like a gunshot. There he is, coming out right now with his wife. I turned my head slowly. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. And then I saw him. Gregory. My husband of 8 years, the father of my 2 children. He was walking out of the glass doors with his arm wrapped around a woman's waist. She was tall and beautiful. Her hair was long and shiny. She wore a cream-coloured dress that hugged her body and heels that clicked on the pavement. She was laughing at something Gregory said. He looked at her like she was the only person in the world. Then he leaned down and kissed her forehead. I felt like someone had reached into my chest and squeezed my heart until it stopped beating. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I just stood there watching my whole life fall apart in front of my eyes. The security guard was still talking to me. I couldn't hear him anymore. Everything sounded far away, like I was underwater. I watched Gregory open the car door for this woman. She slid inside like she had done it 1,000 times. He walked around to the driver's side, and before he got in, he looked back at the building and smiled. He never saw me. He had no idea I was standing there watching him destroy everything we built together. My legs finally gave out. I grabbed the edge of the security desk to keep from falling. The guard asked if I was okay. I nodded, but I wasn't okay. I would never be okay again. Let me go back to where this all started. 2 weeks before that terrible moment outside the building. It was a Tuesday night, and Gregory came home late again. This was nothing new. For the past 2 years, he had been coming home late almost every night. He always had the same excuse. Work was crazy. The company was growing. He had meetings and calls and deals to close. I always believed him. Why wouldn't I? This was the man I fell in love with when he had nothing. When I met Gregory, he was a struggling accountant working out of a tiny office. He wore the same 3 suits every week. He drove a car that broke down every other month. But he had dreams, big dreams, and he worked harder than anyone I ever knew. I supported him through all of it. I worked 2 jobs so he could save money to start his company. I packed his lunches. I stayed up late helping him practice his pitches. I believed in him when nobody else did. And it worked. Horizon Tech became huge. Gregory became a CEO. We moved into a big house in a nice neighborhood. Our kids went to private school. We had everything we ever wanted. But somewhere along the way, I lost my husband. That Tuesday night, Gregory walked in around 11. I was sitting on the couch waiting for him. The kids were already asleep. He came through the door looking tired, but there was something else. A kind of energy I couldn't explain. He kissed my cheek quickly and said he was going to shower. When he walked past me, I smelled it. Perfume. Not my perfume. Something expensive and heavy. It clung to his shirt like a ghost. I didn't say anything. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe someone hugged him at a meeting. Maybe it was his secretary's perfume from sitting too close. I pushed the thought away because I didn't want it to be true. The next morning, I was putting away Gregory's dry cleaning when I found it. A receipt in his jacket pocket. It was from a jewelry store downtown, a very expensive jewelry store. The receipt said he bought a diamond bracelet. The price made my eyes go wide. I stood in our closet holding that receipt with my hands, shaking. Gregory had never bought me a diamond bracelet. Not for my birthday, not for our anniversary, not for Christmas. So who was it for? I wanted to ask him. I almost did. But then I stopped myself. Maybe it was a surprise for me. Maybe he was planning something special. Our anniversary was coming up in 2 weeks. That had to be it. He was planning a surprise. I put the receipt back in his pocket and tried to forget about it, but I couldn't forget. The next few days, I watched Gregory more carefully. I noticed things I had ignored before. His phone was always face down on the table. He took calls in the other room with the door closed. He was on his laptop late at night and closed it quickly when I walked in. I told myself I was being crazy. I was imagining things. Gregory loved me. He would never betray me. Then my mother came to visit. Mama Lou has never liked Gregory. She didn't trust him from the first day I brought him home. She said he had slippery eyes. She said a man who wanted to be rich that badly would do anything to get there. I always defended him. I told her she was wrong. I told her she didn't know him like I did. That weekend, Mama Lou sat with me in the kitchen while Gregory was at work. She looked at me with those sharp eyes that saw everything. "Baby girl," she said, "something ain't right in this house." I told her everything was fine. She shook her head. "You got shadows under your eyes. You jump every time your phone makes a sound, and that man ain't looked at you once since I got here. Not once." I started to argue with her, but she held up her hand. "I ain't trying to start trouble. I'm just telling you what I see. A woman should never be afraid to look at the truth, even when it hurts." We didn't talk about it again, but her words stayed in my head like a splinter I couldn't pull out. The next Friday, Gregory called me in the afternoon. He said he had bad news. He had to cancel our anniversary dinner. There was an emergency board meeting that night. He couldn't get out of it. He said he would make it up to me. I said I understood. I told him it was okay. But when I hung up the phone, I sat at the kitchen table and cried. That night around 8 o'clock, Gregory called again. He said the meeting was running long. He wouldn't be home until midnight. I could hear noise in the background, voices, music. And then, just before he hung up, I heard something that made my blood run cold. A woman's voice, close to the phone. She said, "Greg, come on, they're waiting for us." The call ended. I stared at the phone in my hand. That was the moment I made my decision. Tomorrow I would go to his office. I would surprise him with lunch. I would see for myself that everything was fine. I had no idea that tomorrow would be the day my whole world would burn to the ground. I barely slept that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while Gregory snored beside me. He had come home after midnight smelling like alcohol and that same perfume. He didn't even try to hide it anymore. He just climbed into bed and passed out like nothing was wrong. I watched him sleep and wondered who this man was. He looked like my husband. He had the same face I fell in love with 10 years ago. But something behind that face had changed. Something I couldn't see but could feel in my bones. The next morning I woke up early and made breakfast for the kids. My daughter Zoe was 7 and my son Marcus was 5. They were the best things in my life, the only things that made sense anymore. I packed their lunches and drove them to school. I smiled and waved and pretended everything was normal. Then I went home and got ready. I spent an hour picking out my outfit. I wanted to look nice for Gregory. I chose a blue dress he always said he loved. I did my hair and put on makeup. I even wore the pearl earrings he gave me for our 5th anniversary. I looked at myself in the mirror and tried to see what he saw. Was I still pretty enough? Was I still good enough? I hated myself for thinking that way, but I couldn't help it. I stopped at Gregory's favorite restaurant and picked up lunch for 2, steak sandwich and sweet potato fries. His favorite. I put it in a nice bag with napkins and plasticware. I was going to surprise my husband at work. We were going to have lunch together like we used to when he first started the company. Everything was going to be fine. The drive to Horizon Tech took 30 minutes. The building was downtown in the business district. I had never been there before. Gregory moved the company to this new headquarters 2 years ago, but he always said it was too hectic for me to visit. He said he would give me a tour when things calmed down. Things never calmed down. I pulled into the parking lot and looked up at the building. It was tall and modern with walls of glass that reflected the sky. The Horizon Tech logo was huge across the front. I felt proud of Gregory in that moment. He built this. He started with nothing and created something amazing. I walked toward the entrance carrying the bag of food. That's when I saw the sign on the door. Authorized personnel only. I almost turned around, but then I told myself that was silly. I was the CEO's wife. Of course I was authorized. I pushed through the door and walked into the lobby. It was beautiful. High ceilings, marble floors, modern furniture. A huge reception desk sat in the center with a security station beside it. A man in a uniform sat behind the station. He was older, maybe in his 50s, with grey hair and kind eyes. I walked up to him and smiled. "Good afternoon," I said. "I'm here to see Gregory Patterson. I'm his wife." The man looked at me. His name tag said Raymond. He didn't smile back. Instead, his face did something strange. He looked confused, then almost amused, then something like sad. "I'm sorry," he said. "Did you say you're Mr. Patterson's wife?" "Yes." I held up the bag. "I brought him lunch. I wanted to surprise him." Raymond leaned back in his chair. He studied my face like he was trying to figure something out. "Mom," he said slowly, "I see Mr. Patterson's wife every day. She was just here about 30 minutes ago. She went upstairs to his office." I felt the floor tilt beneath me. I grabbed the edge of the desk. "That's not possible," I said. "I'm his wife. We've been married for 8 years. We have 2 children." Raymond shook his head. He looked uncomfortable now, like he wanted to be anywhere else. "I don't know what to tell you, Mom, but I know Mrs. Patterson. She's been coming here for years." Before I could say anything else, Raymond looked past me toward the elevator. His face changed. "Actually," he said, "there he is right now, coming out with his wife." I turned around. The elevator doors had just opened, and there was Gregory, my Gregory, walking out with his arm around a woman. She was younger than me, maybe late 20s. She had long dark hair and perfect skin. She wore a cream-colored dress and designer heels. On her wrist was a diamond bracelet that caught the light, the bracelet from the receipt. Gregory was smiling at her. He leaned down and whispered something in her ear. She laughed and playfully pushed his chest. He caught her hand and kissed it. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. The bag of food slipped from my fingers and hit the floor. The container popped open and steak and fries spilled across the marble. Raymond jumped up from his seat. Gregory and the woman looked over at the noise. For one terrible second I thought Gregory saw me, but he just glanced at the mess and shook his head. Then he turned and walked toward the door with the woman still wrapped around him. He didn't recognize me, his own wife. He looked right at me and saw nothing. They walked out the front door. I watched them through the glass. He opened the car door for her. She slid inside. He walked around to the driver's side. And then they were gone. I stood there in the middle of the lobby with food all over the floor. Raymond was calling for someone to clean it up. People were walking past me, staring. I was shaking so hard my teeth were chattering. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run outside and chase his car down the street. I wanted to call him and curse him and demand to know who that woman was. But I didn't do any of that. Instead, something cold and hard settled in my chest. It pushed down the pain and the panic. It cleared my head. And in that moment I made a decision. I was not going to confront him. I was not going to cause a scene. I was going to find out the truth, all of it, and I was going to make him pay for every single lie. I turned back to Raymond. He was watching me with pity in his eyes. "I'm so sorry," I said. I made my voice light and embarrassed. "I made a mistake. I'm not here to see Mr. Patterson. I'm actually here to ask about job openings. Do you have any applications?" Raymond stared at me for a long moment. I think he knew I was lying. But he didn't say anything. He just reached under the desk and pulled out a form. "Fill this out," he said quietly. "Bring it back to the front desk when you're done." I took the application and sat down in the lobby. My hands were still shaking, but I forced them to be steady. I filled out the form using my maiden name, Denise Williams. I listed my real qualifications, my business degree, my office experience from before I became a teacher, all the things Gregory told me I didn't need anymore because he would take care of me. I finished the application and brought it back to Raymond. He took it without a word. "Thank you," I said. "I hope to hear from you soon." I walked out of that building with my head held high. I got in my car and drove away. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just drove. That night, I made dinner. I helped the kids with homework. I smiled when Gregory came home late again. I asked about his day. He said it was busy. I said that's nice. And I waited. 3 days later, my phone rang. It was the HR department at Horizon Tech. They wanted me to come in for an interview. I said I would be there. I got the job. They hired me as an administrative assistant in the marketing department, 2 floors below Gregory's office, close enough to watch him, far enough to stay hidden. But I couldn't walk in there looking like myself. Gregory would recognize me in a second, so I had to change everything. The day before my first shift, I went to a salon across town. I told the stylist I wanted something completely different. She cut my hair short just below my ears. Then she dyed it dark brown, almost black. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. Next, I went to a drugstore and bought glasses with thick frames. I didn't need glasses, my vision was perfect. But they changed my face. They made me look like someone else. I stood in front of my bathroom mirror that night and studied my reflection. The woman looking back at me was not Denise Patterson. She was Denise Williams, a single woman looking for a fresh start, a woman with no husband and no children and no broken heart. I could do this. I had to do this. That night, Gregory came home late as usual. He dropped his keys on the counter and loosened his tie. He barely looked at me. "How was your day?" I asked. "Busy," he said. "Meetings all afternoon. I'm exhausted." "I have some news," I said. I kept my voice casual. "I got a new teaching position. The hours are longer, so I'll be home later in the evenings. I already talked to my mother about picking up the kids." Gregory nodded. He was scrolling through his phone. "That's nice," he said. He didn't ask where the job was. He didn't ask about the pay or the hours or why I wanted to work more. He didn't even look up from his phone. I stood there watching him, and I felt something inside me turn to stone. The next morning, I dropped the kids at school and drove downtown. I parked in the Horizon Tech garage and walked into the building. Raymond was at the security desk. He looked at me, and I saw recognition flash in his eyes. But he didn't say anything. He just nodded and let me through. The marketing department was on the 14th floor. It was a big, open space with cubicles and glass offices along the walls. My desk was in the middle of the room, small and plain. Nothing like the life I lived at home. My supervisor was a woman named Angela. She was in her 40s with a friendly smile and a loud laugh. She showed me around the office and introduced me to the team. Everyone was nice. Everyone was welcoming. It felt strange to be treated like a normal person, like I was just Denise Williams and not the CEO's secret wife. I spent the first few days learning my job and keeping my head down. I answered phones and filed paperwork and made copies. I smiled and nodded and pretended to care about marketing reports. But I was watching, always watching. I learned things quickly, things that made my stomach turn. The woman I saw with Gregory was named Vanessa Cole. She was his executive assistant. At least that was her official title. But everyone in the office treated her like royalty. They opened doors for her. They stepped aside when she walked down the hall. They called her Mrs. Patterson. The first time I heard it, I was standing at the copy machine. 2 women from accounting were talking nearby. "Did you see Mrs. Patterson's new bag?" one of them said. "It's Chanel. Must have cost $5,000. "Mr. Patterson spoils her rotten," the other woman said. "But she deserves it. She works so hard for this company." I gripped the edge of the copy machine so hard my knuckles turned white. I wanted to scream at them. I wanted to tell them that I was Mrs. Patterson, that I had been Mrs. Patterson for 8 years, that I gave up my career and my dreams to support that man. But I didn't say anything. I just took my copies and walked away. Over the next few days, I learned more. Vanessa had her own office on the executive floor, right next to Gregory's. She attended all the important meetings. She traveled with him on business trips. She had a company credit card with no limit, and she wore a wedding ring. I saw it one afternoon when she came down to the marketing floor. She was dropping off documents for Angela, I was sitting at my desk pretending to work, but I was watching her every move. She was beautiful. I hated to admit it, but she was. Tall and thin with perfect hair and perfect makeup. She moved like she owned the place, and on her left hand was a diamond ring that sparkled under the office lights. I felt sick, but I needed to know more. I started making friends in the office. I smiled and made small talk and brought donuts to share. People liked me, they trusted me, and they loved to gossip. There was one woman in particular. Her name was Paula. She worked in marketing and had been with the company for 5 years. She knew everything about everyone, and she loved to talk. One afternoon, I asked Paula about Vanessa. I kept my voice light and curious, like I was just a new employee trying to understand the office dynamics. Paula leaned in close. Her eyes were bright with gossip. "Oh, honey," she said, "that's Mrs. Patterson. She and Mr. Patterson got married about 2 years ago. They had a private ceremony. Very small and elegant. The whole executive team was there." I nodded and smiled, even though my heart was cracking in half. "They seem very happy," I said. "They are," Paula said. "He absolutely adores her. You should see the way he looks at her, and the gifts he buys her. Last month he surprised her with a car, a brand new Mercedes, just because it was Tuesday." I thought about my own car, the Honda I had been driving for 6 years. Gregory always said we didn't need to waste money on a new car for me. He said my car was fine. "That's so sweet," I said. The words tasted like poison. Paula nodded. "They're the perfect couple. Everyone thinks so." That night, I went to the break room on the 14th floor. I told myself I was just getting coffee. But really, I was looking for something. I didn't know what until I found it. There was a bulletin board on the wall. It was covered with company announcements and employee photos. And in the corner, almost hidden behind a flyer for a charity run, were the wedding pictures. I pulled them out with trembling hands. Gregory in a dark suit. Vanessa in a white dress. They were standing under an arch covered in flowers. Gregory was smiling. That real smile he used to give me when we were young and in love and the world was full of possibility. There were more photos. Gregory and Vanessa cutting a cake. Gregory and Vanessa dancing. Gregory's business partners raising champagne glasses in a toast. I leaned against the wall because my legs wouldn't hold me up anymore. This wasn't just an affair. This was a whole other life. Gregory had married this woman. He had stood in front of people and made vows to her. He had given her his name. My name. I put the photos back on the board. I walked out of the break room and into the bathroom. I locked myself in a stall and pressed my hands against my mouth so no one would hear me cry. When I was done, I washed my face and looked at myself in the mirror. The woman looking back at me was not weak. She was not broken. She was angry. I took out my phone and called Tiffany. "I need your help," I said. "I need to find out everything. And I need to make him pay." Tiffany came to my house that night after the kids were asleep. I told Gregory I was having a girls' night with an old friend. He didn't care. He just nodded and said he had work to do in his office. He didn't even ask who was coming over. Tiffany sat at my kitchen table with her laptop open and a notebook beside her. She was a journalist. Digging up secrets was what she did best, and she was furious on my behalf. "I'm going to destroy him," she said. "By the time I'm done, he won't have a company or a reputation or a single dollar to his name." I shook my head. I don't want revenge. I want the truth. I want to know everything before I make any decisions. Tiffany looked at me with fire in her eyes. "Denise, this man married another woman while he's still married to you. That's bigamy. That's fraud. That's criminal." "I know," I said, "but I need to be smart about this. If I go after him without proof, he'll bury me. He has lawyers and money and power. I have nothing." Tiffany took a deep breath. She knew I was right. "Okay," she said. "We do this your way. We gather evidence, we build a case, and when we have everything we need, we take him down." That's what we did. Over the next 3 weeks, I became a spy in my own husband's company. I worked my job during the day and watched everything. I listened to conversations. I paid attention to details. I wrote down names and dates and anything that seemed important. At night, Tiffany did her own research. She dug into Gregory's finances. She searched public records. She called sources and pulled strings. Piece by piece, we put the puzzle together. And what we found made me sick. Gregory didn't marry Vanessa for love. He married her for money. 3 years ago, Horizon Tech was in trouble. The company had grown too fast. Gregory had made bad investments. He was millions of dollars in debt and about to lose everything. That's when he met Vanessa's father. His name was Richard Cole. He was one of the richest investors in the country. He had the money Gregory needed to save his company. But Richard Cole didn't just hand out money. He wanted something in return. He wanted his daughter taken care of. He wanted her married to a powerful man who could give her the life she deserved. So Gregory made a deal. He would marry Vanessa. He would make her his wife in front of the business world. And in return, Richard Cole would invest $50 million in Horizon Tech. Gregory agreed. He married Vanessa in a private ceremony 2 years ago. He gave her his name. He gave her a ring. He gave her everything she wanted. And he never told me. I was still his legal wife. We were still married in the eyes of the law. But in the eyes of his business partners and investors and employees, Vanessa was Mrs. Patterson. I was nothing. Tiffany found more. She found financial records that made my blood run cold. Gregory had been moving money for years. He was transferring assets out of our marriage and hiding them in offshore accounts, our house, our savings, our retirement funds. Even the college funds I set up for Zoe and Marcus. He was draining everything and putting it somewhere I couldn't touch. He was planning to leave me with nothing. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came when Tiffany found the court documents. 6 months ago, Gregory filed for divorce. He hired a team of lawyers. He created a strategy to take everything and leave me with nothing. The papers were drawn up and ready to be served. He was just waiting for the right moment. I sat at my kitchen table and stared at the documents Tiffany printed out. My hands were shaking. My vision was blurry with tears. He was going to blindside me, I whispered. He was going to serve me papers and take my children and leave me on the street after everything I did for him. Tiffany reached across the table and grabbed my hand. He's not going to win, she said. We have evidence now. We have proof of fraud and hidden assets and bigamy. His lawyers won't be able to save him from this. I wiped my eyes and took a deep breath. She was right. I had spent weeks feeling like a victim. But I wasn't a victim anymore. I was a woman with evidence. And evidence was power. The next day at work, something unexpected happened. I was leaving the building around 6 o'clock. Most people had already gone home. The lobby was quiet and empty. Raymond was at the security desk, like always. I nodded at him as I walked past, but he called out to me, "Ms. Williams, can I speak with you for a moment?" I stopped and turned around. Raymond looked serious. He glanced around to make sure no one was listening. "I know who you are," he said quietly. My heart stopped. I opened my mouth to deny it, but he held up his hand. "I recognized you the first day you came here, when you asked about Mr. Patterson and said you were his wife. I've worked in this building for 15 years. I never forget a face." I didn't know what to say. I just stood there frozen. Raymond leaned forward. His voice was barely above a whisper. "I've seen things in this building. Things I wish I could forget. Mr. Patterson is not a good man. He treats people like they're disposable. He lies and cheats and doesn't care who he hurts." I found my voice. "Why are you telling me this?" Raymond looked me straight in the eyes. "Because I want to help you. Whatever you're planning, whatever you're trying to do, I want to help." I studied his face. I saw no deception there, only sincerity and something that looked like anger. "Why?" I asked. "Why would you risk your job to help me?" Raymond was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I had a daughter. She married a man like Mr. Patterson, rich and charming and full of lies. He destroyed her life. She never recovered. He paused. His jaw tightened. I couldn't save my daughter, but maybe I can help you. I felt tears prick my eyes. This man didn't know me. He owed me nothing, but he was willing to risk everything to help me fight back. What can you do? I asked. Raymond reached under the desk and pulled out a flash drive. Security footage, he said. 3 years' worth. Every time Mr. Patterson and Ms. Cole were together, every private meeting with lawyers, every handoff of cash and documents, it's all here. I took the flash drive. It was small and light, but it felt like a weapon in my hand. There's more, Raymond said. The annual gala is in 2 weeks. Every important person in the company will be there. Investors, partners, media. Mr. Patterson is giving a speech. Ms. Cole will be right beside him. He looked at me with something like hope in his eyes. If you're going to make your move, that's the place to do it. I closed my fingers around the flash drive. My mind was already racing. The gala. 500 people, cameras everywhere. Gregory on stage talking about integrity and family values with his fake wife beside him. It was perfect. I looked at Raymond and nodded. Thank you, I said. I won't forget this. He nodded back. Give him hell, Mrs. Patterson. I walked out of that building with the flash drive in my pocket and a plan forming in my head. I had the evidence. I had the moment. Now I just needed the courage to do what had to be done. 2 weeks. That's all I had to wait. 2 weeks until the gala. 2 weeks until Gregory Patterson's world came crashing down. The night of the gala arrived. I stood in front of my mirror at home and looked at myself one last time. I was wearing a red dress. Not the kind of dress I usually wore. This one was bold and elegant and impossible to ignore. I bought it with my own money. Money I had been saving for months without Gregory knowing. My hair was back to its natural colour. I had washed out the dark dye and let my real self come through. No more glasses. No more disguise. Tonight I was not Denise Williams from the marketing department. I was Denise Patterson, legal wife, mother of 2, and a woman who had been lied to for the last time. Gregory had left for the gala 2 hours earlier. He said he had to be there early to prepare for his speech. He didn't ask if I wanted to come. He never even mentioned the event to me. In his mind, I was just the woman who stayed home with the kids. I wasn't part of his real life. Mama Lou came over to watch Zoe and Marcus. She took one look at me in that red dress and smiled. You look like a woman on a mission, she said. I am, I said. She hugged me tight. Give him what he deserves, baby girl. And then come home to your children. Tiffany picked me up outside. She was dressed up too, but she wasn't coming inside. She would wait in the car in case I needed a quick escape. She handed me a small clutch purse. Inside was a flash drive with all the evidence. Financial records, court documents, security footage. Everything we had gathered over the past month. You sure about this? Tiffany asked. I nodded. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. She squeezed my hand. Then go in there and burn it all down. The gala was held at a grand hotel downtown. When I arrived, the ballroom was already full. 500 people in expensive clothes drinking champagne and laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. A live band played soft music. Everything was beautiful and elegant and fake. I walked through the crowd with my head held high. People looked at me. Some of them recognized me. I saw confusion on their faces. They knew me as Gregory's wife, but they also knew Vanessa as Gregory's wife. They didn't know what to make of seeing me here. I spotted Gregory across the room. He was standing near the stage with Vanessa beside him. She was wearing a silver dress that sparkled under the lights. The diamond bracelet was on her wrist. The wedding ring was on her finger. She was laughing at something one of the investors said. Gregory looked happy, relaxed. He had no idea what was coming. I didn't approach him. Not yet. I wanted him to see me first. I wanted him to sweat. It didn't take long. About 10 minutes after I arrived, Gregory's eyes found me across the room. I watched his face change, first confusion, then recognition, then pure terror. He said something to Vanessa and walked toward me. His jaw was tight. His eyes were hard. "What are you doing here?" he said through his teeth. He grabbed my arm and tried to pull me toward the exit. I yanked my arm away. "Don't touch me." "You need to leave," he said. "Right now. You're going to ruin everything." I smiled at him, a cold smile that I didn't know I had in me. "I'm not going anywhere, Gregory. I'm your wife. I have every right to be here." His face turned red. He looked around to see if anyone was watching. People were starting to notice us. "We'll talk about this at home," he said. "Just leave now and I'll explain everything." "You've had 8 years to explain," I said. "Tonight I do the talking." I walked away from him and disappeared into the crowd. I could feel his eyes following me. I could feel his panic rising. Good. The next hour was torture for him. I watched him try to keep Vanessa away from me. He kept making excuses to move her across the room whenever I got close. He was sweating through his expensive suit. He couldn't focus on his conversations. He kept looking around for me like I was a ghost haunting him. I enjoyed every second of it. Finally, the time came. The band stopped playing. The lights dimmed. A spotlight hit the stage. The host announced that Gregory Patterson, CEO of Horizon Tech, would now give his keynote speech. Gregory walked onto the stage. Vanessa stood in the front row, beaming up at him like he was a king. Gregory gripped the podium and tried to smile, but I could see his hands shaking. He started his speech. He talked about the company's success. He talked about growth and innovation and the future. Then he started talking about values. Integrity, honesty, trust. I almost laughed. Then he said the words I was waiting for. "None of this would be possible without the support of my beautiful wife. She has been my rock and my partner through everything. I am so grateful to have her by my side." He looked down at Vanessa. She blew him a kiss. The audience applauded. That was my cue. I walked toward the stage. People moved out of my way. Maybe it was the look on my face, maybe it was the red dress, but no one tried to stop me. I climbed the steps to the stage. Gregory saw me coming and his face went white. He tried to say something, but no words came out. I took the microphone from his hand. "Good evening, everyone," I said. My voice was steady and clear. "My name is Denise Patterson. I have been married to Gregory Patterson for 8 years. We have 2 children together. I am his legal wife." The room went silent. I could see people looking at Vanessa, then at me, then back at Vanessa. "The woman Gregory just thanked is not his wife," I continued. "Her name is Vanessa Cole. Gregory married her in a fake ceremony 2 years ago as part of a business deal. He committed bigamy, he committed fraud, and he has been stealing from our family ever since." I turned to the screen behind me. Raymond had helped me set this up earlier. I pressed a button and the evidence appeared. Documents, photos, financial records, screenshots of the secret divorce filing. I let the audience see it all. "Gregory has been hiding assets in offshore accounts," I said. "He has been draining our children's college funds. He filed for divorce 6 months ago and never told me. He was planning to leave me with nothing." The room erupted. People were shouting, cameras were flashing. I saw investors pulling out their phones. I saw Vanessa trying to run for the exit. Security stopped her at the door. Gregory stood frozen beside me. His mouth was open. His face was grey. He looked like a man watching his own funeral. I turned to him one last time. "You took 8 years of my life," I said. "You lied to me every single day. You made me believe I wasn't good enough while you built a whole other life with someone else. But you made one mistake, Gregory. You underestimated me." I dropped the microphone on the stage. The thud echoed through the silent room. I walked off the stage and through the crowd. People parted for me like I was on fire. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Tiffany was waiting outside with the car running. Mama Lou was in the back seat. She had left the kids with a neighbor because she wanted to be there when I came out. I got in the car and closed the door. Tiffany pulled away from the hotel. "How do you feel?" Mama Lou asked. I thought about it. I thought about the life I was leaving behind, the lies, the betrayal, the man I thought I knew. Then I thought about the life ahead of me, my children, my freedom, my future. "I feel free," I said. Mama Lou took my hand and squeezed it. "That's my girl," she said. I looked out the window as the city lights blurred past. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring. I didn't know how hard the road ahead would be. But I knew one thing for certain. I was done being invisible. I was done being lied to. And I was done letting anyone else write my story. From now on, I would write it myself.